from 1988 to 1901, the Philippines would be placed under a military government until a separate government would go into place. So, nasa two acts of the United States Congress that passed that may be considered to have qualities of constitutionality. The first one, the Philippine Organic Act of 1902. The first organic law for the Philippine island that provided for the creation of a popularly elected Philippine Assembly. The Act specified that legislative power would be vested in a cameral legislature composed of the Philippine Commission as the upper house and the Philippine Assembly as lower house. So, then the second one was the Philippines Autonomy Act of 1916, functioned as a Constitution Act commonly referred as Jones Law. It modified the structure of Philippine government through the removal of the Philippine Commission, replacing it with a Senate that served as the upper house and its member elected by the Philippine voters, the first truly elected national legislature. It was also this act that explicitly declared the purpose of the United States to end their sovereignty over the Philippines and recognize Philippine independence as soon as a state government can be established. In 1932, with the efforts of the Filipino Independence Mission, led by Sergio Osmeña and Manuel Rojas, the United States Congress passed the Hare-Harris Cutting Act with the promise of granting Filipinos independence. The bill was proposed by then Senate President Manuel L. Quezon and consequently rejected by the Philippine Senate. Then by 1934, another law, the Tidings-McDuffie Act, also known as the Philippine Independence Act, was passed by United States Congress that provided authority and defined mechanisms for the establishment of a formal constitution by a constitutional convention. The members of conventions were elected and held their first meeting on July 30, 1934, with Caro Emberto and anonymously elected as president. So, primary source, preamble of the 1935 Common Law. Then, 1973 Constitutional Authoritarianism. In 1965, in 1965, Ferdinand Marcos was elected president, and in 1967, Philippine Congress passed a resolution calling for a constitutional convention to change the 1935 convention. Marcos won the re-election in 1869 in a bid boosted by campaign overspending and use of government funds. Election of the delegates to the Constitutional Convention were held on November 20, 1970, and the convention began formally on June 1, 1971, with the former President Carlos V. Garcia being elected as convention president. Unfortunately, he died and was succeeded by another former president, Diosdado Macapagal. Before convention finished its work, martial law was declared. Marcos cited a growing communist insurgency as reason for the martial law, which was provided for in the 1935 Constitution. Some delegates of the ongoing Constitutional Convention were placed behind bars and others went into hiding or were voluntarily exiled. With Marcos as dictator, the direction of the convention turned with accounts that the president himself dictated some provisions of the Constitution, manipulating document to be able to hold on to power for as long as he could. On November 29, 1972, the convention approved its proposed constitution. The constitution was supposed to introduce a parliamentary-style government, where legislative power was vested in a unicameral National Assembly, with members being elected to a six-year term. The president was to be elected as a symbolic and ceremonial head of state chosen from the members of the National Assembly. The president would serve a six-year term and could be re-elected to an unlimited number of terms. Executive power was relegated to the Prime Minister, who was also the head of the government and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, who was also to be elected from the National Assembly. President Marcos issued Presidential Decree Number 73, setting the date of the plebiscite to ratify or reject the proposed constitution on November 30, 1973. This was postponed later on since Marcos feared that public might vote to reject the constitution. Instead of plebiscite, citizen assemblies were held from January 10 to 15, 1973, where the citizens coming together and voting by hand decided on whether to ratify the constitution, suspend the convening of interim National Assembly, continue martial law, or pledge or place a moratorium on elections for a period of at least several years. The president on January 17, 1973, issued a proclamation announcing that the proposed constitution had been ratified by an overwhelming vote of the members of the highly irregular citizens of cities. The constitution was amended several times. In 1976, citizen assemblies once again decided to allow the constitution of martial law, as well as approve the amendments and interim batasang pambansa to substitute for the interim National Assembly. The president also became the prime minister and continued to exercise legislative power until martial law was lifted and authorized the president to legislate on his own on an emergency basis. In 1980, the retirement age of members of the judiciary was extended to 7 years. And in 1981, the parliamentary system was formally modified to a French-style semi-presidential system where executive power was restored to the president, who was once again to be directly elected. An executive committee was to be created, composed of prime minister and 14 others that served as the president's cabinets, and some electoral reforms were instituted. In 1984, the executive committee was abolished and profession of the vice president was restored. After all the amendments introduced, the 1973 Constitution was merely a way for the President to keep executive powers, abolish the Senate, and by any means never acted as a parliamentary system, instead functioned as a authoritarian presidential system with all the real power concentrated in the hands of the president with the backing of the constitution. The situation in the 1980s had been very turbulent. As Marcos amassed power, discontent has also been burgeoning. The tide turned quickly when in August 1983, Benigno Aquino Jr. opposition leader regarded as the most credible alternative to President Marcos was assassinated while under military escort immediately after his return from the exile in the United States. There was widespread suspicion that the orders to assassinate, assassinate Aquino came from the top levels of the government and military. This event caused the coming together of the nonviolent opposition against the Marcos authoritarian regime. Marcos was then forced to hold snap elections a year early and said elections were marred by widespread fraud. Marcos declared himself winner despite the international condemnation and nation protest. A small group of military rebels attempted to stage a coup but failed. However, this triggered what came to be known as the Executive Power Revolution of 1986. As people from all walks of life spilled onto the streets under pressure from the United States of America, who used to support Marcos and his martial law, the Marcos family fled into exile. His opponent on the snap elections, Benigno Aquino Jr.'s widow, Corazon Aquino, was installed as a president on February 25, 1986. That's